So I've got a tutorial for you today. It's been requested by a number of people in the glider community because recently there's been an unfortunate happening with one of our sugar glider owner friends. She had a few sugar gliders die because she had these little things in her cage. We call them little pom-poms. When I was growing up, we called them warm fuzzies. You can get them in the arts and crafts section at Walmart or Joann Fabrics or AC Moore, wherever you can even get these at the Dollar Tree, and they're real cheap, but I mean, just little tiny pom-poms. Most people that I talk to that have sugar gliders put these in their cages, and they make little ball pits out of them because the gliders like to dig in there and pick them up and chew them apart and play with them. But here's the problem. What happened with these particular gliders that I'm talking about, they ended up pulling the fibers apart and ingesting them, and it got caught up in their systems and killed them, all three of them. And it only happened in her cages that had this. Not all of her sugar glider cages had these. So, I mean, usually, you know, whenever you're looking at your pom-poms, you can look at them and say, oh, well, that one's all pulled apart, I'm just going to throw that one away, but the rest of them look pretty good. Well, you know, I've been sitting here and, you know, I just start pulling on this a little bit. Sugar gliders have pretty sharp teeth. I don't even have any fingernails, and just doing this right here, you can see that it's coming apart, and it looked fine, and that's just in a matter of seconds. So if a glider plays with that half the night or obsesses over it, carries it back to the pouch to nest with, and then they get to playing with it or pulling on it or something, that's just, obviously they ingest it and they don't just spit it out. So a couple years ago, I made what I called like a little pom-pom, and I was making them for myself, and I donated a cage set to a glider gathering as a door prize kind of thing. And the lady that got the cage set really liked these little pom-poms, and so now I'm doing a tutorial on these because these little pom-poms are actually made of fleece. So enough yakking and get to the teaching. So you get your regular fleece, make sure it's thick, durable fleece. If you get your fleece from Walmart, probably not a good idea to use this. Blizzard fleece is usually good to use. Make sure it's anti-pill fleece. That just means that it'll stay looking nice and it won't ball up and pill up and fall apart. So when you hold up your fleece, you notice if you pull one way, it doesn't pull a whole lot. If you pull the other way, there's a lot of stretch. So when you're making your pom-poms, make sure you're cutting in the direction that it's going to be the stiffest. So I pulled it like this. I would cut my strips going this way, which I've already got a little pile here, and you can see that these don't really stretch a whole lot. Now you can make them as big as or small as you want. This one is going to be kind of big, so I just made myself a little handful here. And you want to get your strips all about the same width, that way it's uniform. I'm kind of OCD like that. You want them all to be about the same length, so it's a nice pretty little ball. Don't make them too thin. This is about as thin as I usually make them. You can see compared to my stubby little finger, that's just a little bit smaller than my finger. If you get too small, it'll pull too much. This one right here is actually a good example. If I pull on it, you can see what it does. It's kind of elasticy, and it folds in the middle, it kind of rolls. And if the glider is pulling that too much, I just worry about that. And this one seems pretty durable, but whenever you've got those pieces, let me find my scissors here. If you cut it real long like this, and you cut it too skinny, I'll just cut a piece like this, that stretches an awful lot, and eventually it's just going to tear. I mean, over time, you can see that's just a string, and I don't feel like something like this is very safe for a glider. That's just a string right there, and well, I just broke it, so I just don't feel like that's safe. Some people would be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. So I cut it so it's stiff, not all flimsy. And it's thick enough that no matter how much pulling they do, it's thick enough that it won't break. So I made myself a little pile. It's kind of neatly done, so it's mostly even on both sides, a nice little pile. And then I cut myself a strip, a longer strip. You can see the difference in the size here. This is the longer strip that I'll actually be tying around it. And I did cut this one on the stretchy side. You can see how that stretches, but it's because it's wider, it's not going to tear apart. So it's, yes, it's basically a string like I just showed you, but you can see the difference in the thickness and the width. This one kind of opened back up again. This one's still like a little string. So what I do is I lay this down and I put it right in the middle. Sometimes if I'm feeling really OCD, I'll fold one of these in half and find the exact middle, but for tutorial purposes it'll be fine. So I just kind of wrap it around here, kind of like you would, I don't know, a bale of sticks or something. I think of picking up sticks outside, and I would like wrap twine around them. So it looks kind of like this. And I've got a little straggly one here, so I just try to make sure that none of them are sticking too far one way or not enough the other way before I tie it down. And then what I do is just make a little knot, just kind of tie it, and I pull as tight as I can. This is why I chose to do it, to cut this piece of fleece on the stretchy side, because it stretches. I feel like because it stretches and gets thin, I feel like it ties tighter. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe there's something scientific to it, but it's probably just me being me. So I get it as tight as I possibly can. A lot of times I'll either, since I tied it here, I'll take it around and tie it again, but I quit doing that because I'm afraid that a nail's going to get stuck in there. So I tied it one time, and then I'm just going to knot it. Once again, as tight as I can, and just so it looks pretty, I'll cut the pieces of fleece from the knot there and there, just so it blends in, and then you kind of puff it up and around, and there's just a little pom-pom puff ball. Now, what my gliders like to do with these, I'll make a ball pit of all different sizes. This is probably a bigger size one. You can cut your pieces of fleece if you have the patience for it. You can cut your pieces of fleece like just this big, and then have a little teeny tiny ball. They're actually really cute. It's hard for my chubby, stubby fingers to tie something that tiny, but for instructional purposes, I made one this size. But the gliders like to pull on these, and what's funny is they'll eventually, after so many times of them pulling on it and it going through the washer, they'll eventually just pull it out. And that's the worst that's going to happen. Then they have a little string that they can either nest with or play with or drop in the poo pan, whatever. But then they've got the rest of it. And eventually it'll all come out, which is fine. You can either use it and make a new one with another fleece tie around it, or just toss it. But the worst that's going to happen is one's going to come out. And it's still made of fleece, and it's wide enough that no matter what they do to this, you know, they're not going to swallow it whole. It's long enough that it's, you know, it's short enough that it's not going to get like wrapped around a neck or anything. So they'll just eventually pull and pull until it all kind of falls out, and then they have a heyday with that part. But this, I think, is a safer version of this, and it's all fleece, and we know that fleece is safe for gliders. So if you make these, I'd like to see it on Facebook or in the comment section on YouTube, and thanks for watching.